Today, we talk about... We're back, episode, still don't know what, because I'm doing like a fuck ton of these, so I'm like way behind in the editing, so I don't know what number we're on. I think we're in the high 30s now. But again, another special guest. Introduce yourself, my man.
Hey, I am Peter Wong, a comedian in New York City.
And that's it.
I'm Chinese. I don't know what else to say.
So usually how I do this is I'll have you give us an intro of like your comedy come up, like how you started, when you started, where you started, who inspired you, blah blah blah, and then wherever the conversation goes, we'll split it up into segments. I put out the segments, then I put out the whole thing at the end. So
it's gonna be just like every other podcast, then, right?
Hey. Well, no, I mean a lot of other podcasts they'll have like themes and stuff, but. I feel like A, that's effort, and B, it just doesn't lead to. I mean, it definitely leads to organic conversation.
A lot of podcasts do origin stories.
I see.
Is what I mean.
I see. Okay.
Not to dishearten you.
What? This is the only podcast I watch. No. But yeah, what's your backdrop here?
Okay, so I'll do like a truncated, like whatever, like a
sure.
quick version.
He's like, I've done too many podcasts. I'm getting tired of the story.
Well, I think. Okay, well, I'll just cut to it then. So I flunked out of high school. I only got into a community college. Failure in my parents' eyes, failure in my own eyes. I knew I was funny.
And this was where?
This was in what do you mean
like,
where?
What city?
All in New York.
Oh, okay. All right.
My whole life is in New York.
Gotcha.
My high school was in Harlem.
Okay.
It's a high school for math, science, and engineering.
Is that a magnet school?
That's one of the specialized high schools where you take a test to get in.
Okay.
And I was the dumbest kid in the smart school, basically. Flunked out of that and barely graduated. And then community college, didn't like that. And so I started doing a stand-up class. That took me to a graduation show. I killed it. I did pretty well. And then I thought I was going to be famous for sure. And then
then here you are.
I went to a podcast today, picking out shoes. Yes, then probably did that for like 6 months or a year, and then bombed really hard at a bringer show in front of my friends and everything, and then quit comedy for like 6 years, and then with a new perspective came back, and now I've been doing it.
What were you doing in that off time? Other than trying to kill yourself.
I mean, pretty much. I mean, you sort of kind of realign with what went wrong in your life, and then I started going, oh, well, maybe my parents are right. There's this pragmatic way to approach life that I never really cared for, and so I kind of got back.
And you got into reselling sneakers.
Not yet. That will come later. But I went back to school, studied computer science a bit. And then realized this is not for me. But I kept the good grades, whatever, and then pursued drama, then acting. Went to a acting whatever program, graduated from that, and then got back into comedy.
Nice.
Okay,
cool.
And I sold sneakers just because I didn't have a job, and my cousin loved doing it, and so invited me out. And then
how long ago was that? That was in the Roshi era?
4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
I remember the KDs just came out. It's like the KD 9s or whatever.
Gotcha.
And those were selling like fire. So
really?
We lined up that day, we grabbed like 12 to 20 pairs or something.
Yeah, you got to give me an insider perspective on this reseller side, because I don't meet any of them because I buy all my shit online. Again, being from upstate New York, like a lot of this collection you saw was amassed up there, and it was quite a bitch getting it down here, let me tell you. I rented a U-Haul just for the shoes. I had no furniture, I had nothing.
Just shoes.
I had just shoes, so I put trash bags of shoes, load them in the car. That's why some of them have stains, even though I haven't worn them.
Oh, they got scuffed in the bag.
So, dude, it was such a bitch moving that shit down here. But anyway, so I had no access to resellers, let alone the fact that I couldn't line up here. I wasn't at the good Foot Lockers or Tier 0 accounts that were getting the nice shoes, let alone those other shoes that you were able to line up for and at least get a few pairs so you could resell them. But so I never even really met a reseller before, or one that sort of took it seriously. So you got to explain to me the inner workings of that, or whatever obviously I'm sure your cousin doesn't want to give away insider secrets or whatever, but just the general mentality, what your day-to-day was, you were talking about lineups and stuff. But.
Yeah, well, Foot Locker would say, Foot Locker has a few different ways. They do lotteries and then just lineups, right? The lotteries, you just take a raffle ticket, and then if you win, they call you and you come pick it up. And you don't have to get up early for that. But when they have a release day, they say, oh, this Sunday we're going to have blah, blah, blah come out. And just line up. When the store opens, we'll sell them to you. But what they don't tell you is they don't open when the store opens. They open like 2 or 3 hours before because there's a line of people already there that were there 4 hours before that. So people have been lining up since like 3 a.m. for this. So what you do is you get on that line, right?
So you're showing up at 2 a.m.?
No, I could never show up that early. I would show up at like 6 a.m.
Okay.
6 a.m. is probably the earliest, and it sucked just waking up, driving to Manhattan, and you stand, and it's sometimes freezing or like or it's raining. There's times where it's freaking pouring rain, and you're just under an umbrella like a fucking idiot, watching The Office on your phone, trying to fucking pass the time.
Yeah, I'm trying to humanize the resellers so that the online crowd isn't just like fuck resellers.
It's not just Asians. There's more black dudes on that line than Asians. Although
sure.
You could argue the black dudes are probably just keeping them. That was probably racist. But anyways, you line up, you get it, and then sometimes you line up again because like they're still in stock. So you get them back on the line, you buy another, you throw them in your car, and you come back and you buy a few more, and then you put them on eBay. Some people are even fast, like they already list them before they even buy them, which is a risk because what if you don't get them?
Right.
But yeah, that's the game basically. It's not very glamorous. There's not too many secrets to it. Just get on the line and buy them.
What about for the super hyped shoes, like the shoes that only release at a few boutiques that they only made so many pairs of? I'm guessing maybe you didn't
I didn't
foray
do too
that.
much of those.
Okay.
Like Yeezys, you just got off the phone. You'd play like the button game.
Yeah.
So that's all there is to that. But if for the most part, that's the game. Is just line up early in the morning. Sometimes you hear that a certain store got like I don't know how my cousin knew, but like he knew a Nike store in Long Island stocked the Carmines one day, and I was the closest one there. And he goes, each of these will give you $100 profit, so go. And I was there. I was like, okay. And I just drove right there, brought a friend. They were only limiting it to one per person, so I got one. A friend got one. I almost tried to get people in the mall to like buy it for me, but I was like, I didn't have the balls to and make them do that shit. But yeah, that's.
I bet if you offered them $10, they'd do it. They'd be like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. I mean,
no, you fucked up
now.
But no, that's interesting. Why? How did your cousin know that was the market? Like, $100 profit. Like, how does he know?
From having sold that a bunch before.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? There's some shoes that you just, the moment you say it, then anyone reselling knows, oh, that's a hot ticket item. Carmines were hot for a while.
They've always been, yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. Like, you're not a reseller and you know. So same deal. So we'll hear that and go,
but my problem is I'm just a buyer. I've never been a seller. So for me, it's just like, and luckily I'm blessed to be in a position where I don't have to look at the price tag.
Yeah.
Subtle flex there. But yeah, so I just pay what I got to pay, and I just pray that it's not too much more than retail cost. But I never know how these fuckers are deciding the market. You know what I mean?
No, the resellers don't decide the market. The buyers decide the market.
Well, okay, if you want to get technical. But I'm saying that someone's setting a price, right?
Yeah.
So I've always wondered how, well, I guess.
Where that meets, right?
Yeah.
Supply and demand. I mean, I'm not an economics guy.
Sure, but it sounds like just from what you're saying, your cousin has had enough experience to kind of just like know that intersection point at whatever point. So
yeah, I mean, sometimes you guess, right? So like the KDs, he would sell one for $40 profit, and then he goes,
"That's the weird one.
I could have sold it for 80 more, then put it there, and sells again. Oh, I could have done this." That's where you find the sweet spot.
Gotcha. Yeah, because that's I'm glad you brought that back up, because that's been also interesting to me, because like I'll avoid certain shoes. I don't care how much hype it has, let alone doesn't have. If I'm not into it, I'm not into it. So KD is a perfect example. I have a couple in there that I really like, but in general, his signature line is not something I follow the same way I would follow like a LeBron or a Kobe or a Jordan. So that's interesting to me too, especially as being a reseller, let alone someone like me who's like actually into shoes for the buying of it and enjoying of it.
Yeah.
For someone like me, or for someone like your cousin, who I'm guessing is not a huge sneakerhead. Or is that false?
Not a huge sneakerhead, though the game has made him like some sneakers. And that's why he had us wear J's to his wedding. He got us the same pairs, which was pretty cool. I think.
So, but even so, I mean, I'm guessing he's not a big KD sneaker fan.
No,
right.
Not
so
at all.
Why is it that what in his head made him say, you know what, this is worth the line, this is worth the rain and the snow because I know these are going to sell? Is it he's in talks with other resellers? Is it just he has a feel for it? Like what's?
That's a great question.
Because I would never think to line up for KD's. Because I was surprised when you told me you guys made a bunch of money on them. So like
yeah,
but like I'm not in tune with what kids are kind of feeling all the time, right? So
I think if I were to give you an answer, it would just be guessing. I think he had done it enough where he can kind of get an idea of when something's like starting to get some hype. And I remember that day he wasn't sure. We were lining up, and he goes, I'm just selling them for like 40 more, and that's not a big markup.
Right.
But the idea was he even said before, he goes, hey, by the way, today we're lining up, and there's a chance we won't make any money because these could be nothing. So we're lining up, and while online, he sells one for $40 profit, and he goes, oh, okay. And we line up again, sells another, and sells another. He keeps selling. He goes, oh shit, 90. Sells again. He's like, oh, okay, now you know. So there are days you go up and line up, and you're lining up for a shoe that's nothing.
Yeah, did that ever happen to you?
Oh, yeah, that happens. And then you just return it.
Do you remember which one? Oh, okay.
So it's quote-unquote risk-free, but you did spend
you spent the time, right?
Standing out there.
But I guess if you weren't doing anything anyway, then yeah. I guess you could write jokes on the line, yeah. Do you remember any shoes in particular that were like duds? Yeah, absolute bricks.
I'm trying to. I definitely had some, but they're not coming. Nothing that's going to come to
memorable.
mind. Like
okay, fair enough.
I remember some of the ugliest sneakers sold the best. The up tempos, I couldn't believe how well they sold. Oh my god, I made $300 in like 2 hours.
Oh shit!
I was just like grab, sell, bang.
That's more money than I make as a dog.
You can turn that off? Fucking dinging?
Yeah, probably.
Your podcast listeners want to hear that?
Well, like I said, man, this is very bare bones. So I don't really... That's the thing, man. We can transition into that topic. That's what the ding really was. It's so much more relieving once I just gave up perfecting the art, if you will.
Oh.
So like I remember trying to get a video, and I'd come up with a beautiful idea in my head, and then I'd immediately become depressed because I was like, A, I got no one to help me. B, no one's watching.
Are you talking about podcasts?
No, I'm talking about YouTube content in general.
Oh, okay.
And I'd be like, A, no one's watching right now. B, none of my friends or family are supportive or give a shit about this. C, I'm doing this all alone, and like all the effort that's going to be required to produce this idea I have in my head.
Yeah.
And I would just shut down and get super pissed and miserable. And then the minute I just started like bare boning it, so now I just film everything on my iPhone. I scrapped all the fancy equipment, which sucks because I spent a ton of money on it.
Yeah.
The audio is not podcast quality audio, right? I don't have like the analog mics and whatnot, but it's passable. And it's much easier to do. I'm doing it out of the comfort of my own place. When someone says they're running late or, someone has to cancel, I'm like, no big deal. I'll just play PlayStation, whatever.
Right.
So the convenience factor has been incredible, not only for my mental health, but also to churn out more content much more efficiently. And the viewership has grown immensely. It almost has become like synonymous with my brand, which is just like raw, unedited, just
that's great.
Blah. So yeah,
it's like a balance, right? You have to find the balance of what is enough bare bones, right, versus quality, because there's a certain amount of bare bonesness that is unacceptable to even.
Well, that's subjective, isn't it?
It is subjective, you're right, but then there is still, so it's like a little graph, right? The more bare bones you get, then the more things can put someone off for watching. Right?
Sure.
So like you see, like there's people who do sketches on YouTube, and it's just someone's holding a camera or put their phone in their room, and it's in their freaking bedroom, and there's no lighting or whatever. If I see that as the thumbnail, I'm not clicking the video.
But you know who is? Millions of other people. So it's still doing well, man.
Yeah. I think well, now you're talking about niche then, right? You're kind of like, there's people that are, you're filling into a niche. I think then the discussion becomes watching sketch comedy, there takes a level of like commitment before you click the video.
Sure.
And I think if you don't know the person, you don't know the YouTuber, then and that's what you see. I feel like you're not gonna.
Yeah, it's not great for first impressions. I'll give you that. But what I've learned in this social media exploration is that, dude, people don't care anymore about the high production stuff. And
well, content comes first.
Content comes first. Yes, story comes first. So if you can nail that, yeah, maybe someone like you or like respected comics will not give a shit about it because they expect better. But I mean, clearly people are watching these things, you know, and I know a lot of comedians, especially even like the A-listers, will just constantly bitch about these Instagram comedians.
Yeah.
And listen, I don't like it either. Like, I don't think it's funny.
Right.
But it's fucking crushing.
Yeah.
And it's very bare bones.
Yeah.
It's extremely bare bones. So then you see someone else, like comics I highly respect and love watching everything they do, and they're only putting out like a few sketches every few months because they want to make sure that they meet those subjective,
like
minimums.
Right?
Then it's like,